It's that time of year again. Time for me to show off all of the changes to my HomeLab in 2023. Mine's changed quite a bit, as I'm sure yours has too. I've made changes to networking, to cabling, to power, to storage, to servers, and decommissioned some servers in my cluster in favor for some low power devices. So let's go down to my server room and take a look at all the changes I've made in 2023. But before we do, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to everybody again for an incredible year. And a special thank you to my YouTube members, my Patreon members, my subscribers on Twitch, and also my Discord community. I couldn't have done this without all of you. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe and share this video with some of your friends on Discord and in Slack. Now, with that out of the way, let's go check out my HomeLab. So here is my HomeLab, going a little festive there on top with the Christmas tree. But here is my server rack and all of the changes that I've made to it. And here is everything on the wall. I'll go through this really quickly just so you can understand how this all attaches to my HomeLab and to my server rack. Everything here on the wall comes in through this hole up here, and then all of the network cables throughout the house come into here, this patch panel, and then the internet, this red one right here, comes into here. And this is my fiber modem. All of these at some point go down up to this umbilical cord next to my conveniently placed access point into my server rack. But anyways, I'll go through these devices. This is pretty obvious. This is my Philips Hue hub. I actually have two. Only one of them is actually doing anything right now. I thought I'd mount the other and do something with it, but I haven't yet. This Pi is just running Nut Server on it. It's monitoring this UPS and also these UPSs too, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But you can see it has some really long USB cords and a network cable going all the way back into my server rack. And then this little switch here, it's a Unify, let's see this up close, Unify Flex switch. It has 4 devices connected to it. It's PoE powered, so it's getting PoE power from my network switch that's in the rack and powering this. And then this gave me 4 individual ports, which gave me VLANs so that I could put some of these devices on different VLANs, like IoT, 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 etc. This is my Raspberry Pi Zero. I've had this for a long time, but it's sending wake on LAN packets to my servers to wake them up if they ever go down. And it's also my backup Pi hole for DNS, so that if this whole entire HomeLab server rack goes down, DNS will still be served out through this little guy, which is pretty nice because it's a low power option and it's on a separate UPS here. So this UPS is supplying power to all of these devices here. And I know that looks like a lot, but I mean, this could run for a couple of hours, and this is a little cheap UPS. This right here is my HD Home Run Flex 4K. It's a quad tuner, so I can tune up to 4 channels or record 4 channels. And it's how I get all of my over-the-air TV, along with how I watch my PBS and everything else. And you can see right here this coax going out and up. This goes up to the attic, and there's an antenna up there. And there's actually a signal booster up there, along with an LTE filter upstairs in the attic. And then I have an LTE filter down here. That's something new that I added. They're pretty cheap, but I noticed that I was getting some interference, and I thought it might be LTE signal, and put this on and it cleared everything up. But then moving down here, UPS powering both of these power strips and keeping everything on. And this wall I haven't done anything with yet. I hope I don't expand to there. All I've got up there is a little light and a little camera and my motion detector that turns on these lights when I walk in here. So if we follow this umbilical cord all the way up and over, this is my HomeLab rack. Looks a little bit out of control, but we'll break it down piece by piece, starting from the top. So at the beginning of this year, I think I had a 24-port switch up here, and then I swapped it out for a 48-port switch, and that 48-port was all PoE. And then, just recently, I swapped this out with a 48-port enterprise switch that's all PoE. And I did that because I wanted 2.5 gigabit across all of these devices. So now for every single port that I plug in, it supports PoE and 2.5 gigabit. That old switch is down here not being used, but this one is being used. And I swapped that out, I don't know, about a month or 2 ago. Huge shout out to Unify. They actually sent me that one as an upgrade because I had the 24-port PoE, then I had a 48-port PoE, and I was talking to them about 2.5 gigabits, so they hooked me up with this one. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Huge shout out to them.
And if we take a peek over here, we can see that I have both of these 10 gig links patched in. If we follow them all the way down, it's an uplink to my Switch Aggregation Pro. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But I did that so that I have 2 lanes of 10 gigabit. And then I have 2 more ports that aren't being used. Who knows, someday maybe I'll uplink them to something else. But all of these ports here are coming from somewhere in the house or somewhere in my server rack. And so here's my UDMSC. I think I upgraded this year. I probably didn't need to, but I needed more PoE ports. And that's when I had the 24 port PoE switch. And before I went to the 48 port PoE switch. So the UDMSC just gave me more PoE ports, and it also gave me 2.5 gigabit on the WAN NIC right here, which comes in handy if you have more than gigabit internet. But I probably shouldn't have upgraded this because there isn't much difference between this and the Pro, and I upgraded my Switch shortly after. So anyways, but you can see this one coming through, the red one. This is probably the only patch cable that I have that's a different color in my entire environment, and this one is just for the WAN. So if I trace that all the way back and find it here and go all the way up to there, you can see that this is my WAN port. But anyways, my UDMSC is doing all of my switching. It's my gateway. It's also running Unify Protect. As you can see, I have some cameras up there. And I think that's about it. It's running the network controller, of course, but it really is the gateway to my entire environment, as well as a hub for security and everything else. And if you see this uplink right here, this is actually uplinking to my Switch Aggregation Pro. And you can see I have a couple devices plugged in here. One is going to my USP PDU Pro, and I only did that because it was easy and it looked a little bit better than running a cable through here. And this other one is actually going up to this camera up here. And then this is plugged in here. This is going to my TE Smart KVM HDMI switch back there. And the reason it's in here is because it runs at 100 half. Yes, 100 half. And this enterprise switch only supports 100 full duplex. And it took me about an hour to figure that out before I finally plugged it into here and saw it connected at 100 half. And then I realized, oh, that negotiates at 100 half. So we'll talk about that guy here in a little bit. He's in the back. So coming down, this is my Switch Aggregation Pro. I bought this used from Yakto. And if you know him, he's in our Discord community. But I bought this one specifically because I needed more than 6 or 8 10 gig ports. As you can see here, I have 2, 4, 6, 8 plugged in right now. And I think the Switch Aggregation, the normal one, only has about 8. So I was kind of pushing the limits. And so I went with this one instead, and I plugged these all in. It looks kind of bare with this spinning. I'm like in between, you know, just over the Switch Aggregation and not enough for the Switch Aggregation Pro. But hopefully I'll be plugging some more in here soon. But these two are actually going to my Storinator down there. And these two are going to my HL15 down there. And these are lagged. Again, I'm going to lag everything. I'm going to put dual 10 gig on everything. And that's another reason why I got the Switch Aggregation Pro. But these are lagged to Storinator, lagged to the HL15. Now my 1Us do have 10 gig NICs on them each, dual 10 gig NICs, but they're not plugged in, but we'll get to that here in a second. But this is, you know, providing kind of a backbone to a lot of my network. So this one, again, is plugged into my UDMSC. It's an uplink there. And this one with the RJ45 transceiver on there, it's kind of warm. It actually connects through Ethernet all the way up into my office and uplinks into a switch there into my studio rack. And that's doing 10 gig Ethernet over Cat5e. And that's working out pretty good. So I only had Ethernet to go down. I tested on Cat5e and it works. So it's staying there. And this has some extra ports there too. One day, maybe for uplink. I don't know, I'm getting a lot of networking gear. I feel like half of my rack is networking gear. And so next up is my PDU Pro, and this connects into everything Unify, and I can manage it and toggle on and off all of these devices. And I bought these 45-degree, these right angle NEMA plugs. One, because I think it looks nice, and two, if it was sticking straight out, it might bump into the door when I close it. And so rather than move my whole entire rack back, I went with this. But I think it turned out pretty nice. The only downside is it covers a couple of these ports down here. I think I have 4 additional that are covered. But if I get to the point where I need to take up or use those 4, I'll figure it out then. But this is super nice because not only does it tell me how much power I draw from each individual device, but I can toggle them on and off. I wish I had more control from Unify on what I could do with these, like smart controls and stuff like that, but who knows, maybe that'll come sometime in the future. The other cool thing is it has USB-C power as well, so I'm powering one device, and if I need to power some more, I can plug it right in there instead of using one of these or a wall wart or a weird plug. If it supports USB-C power, I can power it on. And this is powering my PiKVM 4, which you'll see here in a little bit. And then I have some brush panels just to kind of make it look nice and tidy it up. I have one up here too. I'm kind of obsessed with all of these bristles and making sure they're not punched in where they shouldn't be. This one's kind of a mess, but this one's pretty good, except for right there, but I'll fix that later. So this UPS right here is powering everything network. So everything up, pretty much. And so this will give me a couple hours of runtime with all of this stuff. The nice thing about this being PoE is it's also powering switches, access points, cameras throughout the house. And so that if the power goes out, this delivers power to those devices. And then all of this networking equipment is backed up by this. And that'll give me a couple hours of runtime. So I decided to separate that out from servers, which is all powered by that down there. And everything on the wall, again, is powered by that UPS. So I try to separate everything. But yeah, it's super nice, super slim. It's 1U, it's pretty heavy, and it's pretty awesome. Next is this switch I talked about a little bit earlier. I don't even know why it's powered on. It's not even uplinked. But this is the one that I purchased a while ago that I ended up replacing with that enterprise switch. And this is my 1U server, and this is my 1U server, and this is my 1U server. So I have 3 1U servers now. I might as well talk about them now. These are the 2 1U servers that I've had for a long time. These 2 1U servers powered many virtual machines. It powered all of my Kubernetes. They were my workhorses, but I only had 2, and they were my Proxmox nodes, 2 Proxmox nodes. Well, this was my 3rd Proxmox node, and so now I actually picked up another one. So I picked up this one. You can still see plastic on it, but I found it on eBay, and I'm going to make it match the specs of these 2 so that all 3 of them are the exact same. Same RAM, same CPU, same hard drive, same everything, so that if something goes wrong with any of them, I can just swap parts out. But I am going to be moving these. I've already kind of decommissioned them, I will say, but they're taking on a new role. So these are not my Kubernetes nodes anymore. These 3 are. So these 1U servers, I'm actually working kind of on a project, maybe co-locating it. We'll see. I might start a series on that and just moving some of these servers there to do some roles outside of the house and then build kind of a hybrid cloud back to here. But that's all coming. And if you want to see something like that, make sure you're subscribed down there. Okay, next up are my Intel NUCs. These Intel NUCs, well, I used to have just one of them, and I ended up buying 2 more and then getting this rack mount kit to rack them inside of here so they fit nicely. And so these 3 nodes are all running Proxmox. So this is a Proxmox node, this one is 2, this one is 2. And then inside of them, I'm actually running 3 Kubernetes clusters. So these things are a beast. So inside of here, I have 1 node of each type for each cluster, and then 1 node of each type, number 2 from each cluster, and then 1 node of each type for number 3 of each cluster. And so this gives me HA Kubernetes for 3 nodes with these 3 servers. And I did that as a test just to see if I could save some power. And so I migrated my virtual machines to here from these 2 servers and let it run, and it kept running, and it's still running today. And these 3 don't pull much power at all compared to here. Now, don't get me wrong, these are super efficient. These are 1U servers, only single socket, single PSU, but these Intel NUCs, they're, desktop processors and use a lot less power. So anyways, my Kubernetes cluster has been running inside of this mini NUC cluster, and I'd love to get probably 3 more at some point, but they're kind of expensive and they're kind of discontinued, so I'm going to see what's happening with them. But I'd love to get 3 more minis, or at least 2 more minis for some of the roles that I need, so that I could shut down some more power and deprecate some virtual machines that are in here. But I have other plans for that. 2024 is going to be super busy for me too. But anyways, this is my NUC cluster. It's running all of my Kubernetes stuff, all the stuff you see on the public web. All my documentation is in here right now. If you're on my documentation site, that might be you, or that might be you, or that might be you, because it's Kubernetes and I don't know where you're at. Anyways, I'll stop beating Kubernetes over your head. And so next up is my Storinator. This is the AV15. This is one that I've had for, I don't know, a little over a year now. And in here are lots of drives, at least right now. I'm kind of moving some data around. Going to be taking advantage of the HL15 here soon. But I have, I don't know, lots of drives in here, 12-ish, I think. And I'm doing a huge data migration right now, so hopefully I don't mess anything up. Shouldn't mess up, just me touching this. But moving some data from here to here, redoing some of this, gonna expand it by 2 more drives, and then moving the data back to there. And then I'll probably pull these disks, because they're ZFS, and put them in my HL15. And this one actually has some video cards and some other things too, and lots of SSDs. I'm gonna repurpose this and make my HL15 my primary NAS and storage, and then do something else with this. Because this isn't actually running Proxmox right now, and TrueNAS is virtualized inside of here, which totally fine, because I passed through this whole entire backplane and HPA controller. So it's no different than running it physical, except for there's a small software abstraction layer between the hypervisor and this. Actually, no abstraction layer, because it's passed through directly, and that's the advantage of passing the hardware through directly. But for now, it's running TrueNAS, and it's great. I mean, I get 10 gigabit now, and hardware runs fine, great IOPS. But I think I'm going TrueNAS bare metal on the HL15 so I can do something else with this. But I do have 2 virtual machines in here that are both using video cards, and I need to figure out something else with that. I have something in mind. I know that people might not like it, so I'm not going to say what it is, but I am debating maybe doing it with a Mac Mini M2 or M1 just to do some testing to see if I can get a lot of transcoding for a little bit of power. We'll see. Anyways, it's in 2024. Let's close this back in here. And so this next one, this is my PC conversion server, and it was my backup server for a lot of these other servers. So it was my 2 and my 321 backup. And this server's been off for a little while. It's pretty nice, but it's also pretty old. It's my old desktop, not my current desktop, but the desktop before that. I converted it into this rack mount server, and I'm running out of things for it to do, because a lot of it is going to be picked up by this and this. So I actually might just give this away to anyone in the Twin Cities area. If you're looking for a HomeLab server that's in a rack, let me know in the comments. But I might be giving it away on Twitter. We'll see. But anyways, it's a desktop board, 32 gigs of RAM. It has 6 hard drives in it now, which I will be pulling out. But again, it was my backup system for all of this. So a lot of my YouTube videos, like all of my media that I need local access to that also gets backed up off site, I have a local copy here, so that if this died, I wouldn't have to restore, 5 terabytes of data just to get my YouTube videos back. That would take a long time. So this is my local copy of a lot of my data, which soon is going to be here after this moves here. So speaking of this, the HL15. So this is the HL15. It's pretty stock, but it's the one from 45 drives, white case, stock everything, stock backplane, stock motherboard, stock CPU. I did add some more RAM to it, but I wanted to run the same one that a lot of the community is going to be running. And there's nothing in here right now. I would open it up and show you, but I've moved all of my spare drives into there for now. And I think I'm moving them all into here. And I think this is going to be my bare metal TrueNAS box. I'm going back to bare metal. I've gone from bare metal to virtualized to bare metal. I've done it so many times, but now I'm going back to dedicated bare metal. I probably don't need to go bare metal, but at the same time, I have 2 of these big drives or big cases to be NASs, and I'm gonna dedicate this one to a NAS. And then I don't have to co-locate stuff and worry about rebooting. I could just kind of have this up all the time. Last but not least, this is the Triplite UPS. It's pretty awesome. This will actually give me, let's see, at least right now, my power is pretty high. This is higher than normal. If you saw that, I'm getting running about 500 watts of power, which is a ton, and it's giving me 71 minutes, so over an hour, which is pretty awesome. I can get over an hour on this UPS. I do have some additional batteries there in the back. It's actually batteries from here all the way to the back. I'll show you in the back here in a second. The wattage right now is really high, and that's because I'm doing this huge data migration, and all of these drives are like pegged, and I do have some additional stuff on up here. But all of these drives are probably 100% utilization, which is jacking up the power. I usually sit about 400. Sometimes I get under about 380. Once all of this migration is done and I move some of these roles to here and shut some of this down, I think I can get back under 400, which I know is a ton of power, but for me that's pretty good considering, because when I had all of these on, all of these servers, my 1U servers, I was about 585, close to 600. So these Intel NUCs are giving me some more headroom to do other things. And so no server tour would be complete unless we showed you the back of the rack. So here's a quick look at the back of the rack. My cable management is kind of okay. I know that looks super messy down there, but I promise there's a system, we'll get to it. But at the top here, I have my HDMI KVM switch. This is that TE Smart one that I was talking about, and I can toggle through the different devices that I have connected, which is super handy for those Intel NUCs because they don't have IPMI. And I am running that off a PiKVM v4, and I've been testing this because I had issues with the PiKVM v3 along with this TE Smart switch, and unfortunately I'm seeing the same thing and some bug, it seems like, with EDIDs, to where once it learns the EDIDs, or the output monitor ID of the Intel NUCs, it freaks out when it sees something new. But anyways, I'll figure that out all later, and I'll post somewhere to let you know my results. But PiKVM4 is connected to this TE Smart. I can switch that via software. That's connected here to LAN. And this is what I was saying, like this LAN port is only 100 half, which is super weird, which my enterprise switch up there doesn't support 100 half, so I have to plug it into my UDMSC. But I can switch that either hardware right here, software through the PiKVM, and it's pretty awesome. It lets me remote control those devices even when they're powered off. And then down here, just a cheap PDU, and I tried to separate for the most part, kept most data. I think one power is in there, but data over here and power over here. The only one power that is in here is this Philips Hue hub that powers the lights. I will move it over here eventually. I should probably do that soon. Back of the rack, but like I was saying, like, hey, here's all of the network devices that I have plugged into here, and this is that PDU from the back, and these are my UniFi devices. Coming down is a shelf. I bet you couldn't tell, but yeah, shelf. And this is that 1U server that's going to be moved to co-location. I'm kind of committing to it now that I'm saying it publicly, but I think that's what I'm going to do. Here's the other two. Pretty soon I'm going to pull these out, clean them up. I'm going to do a video on them and just preparing them for a co-location. So all three, I'm going to make the match and prepare them for a colo, and maybe start a little series on moving some stuff to my own cloud that's not in the cloud but is self-hosted, my own cloud thing. I don't know what to call it. But this is the back of the HL15. As you can see, those are zinging, lagged, dual 10 gig ports. I do have two video cards in there with dummies on there, one for display port and a dummy HDMI. I'll talk about what that's all doing in my software tour. Lots of network cables. A lot of this is going to be cleaned up. You know, I don't have arms for this stuff, so I don't have a great way of doing this. If you know a great way of, you know, running this stuff without arms to where you could still extend, you know, these servers without pulling on these, you know, cables, let me know. I haven't found a great way yet. This is my PC conversion right here. And like I said, I'll probably be giving that away maybe on Twitter here in a little bit. So look for me there, just because I want someone else to get kind of the joy of running, you know, I don't know, a rack mount server at home. And who knows, maybe they can't afford one or whatever the case may be. I'm not sure I'm going to sell it. I'm just probably going to give it away. And then down there is my HL15. And that's, like I said, going to be my new NAS. And this is what I was saying back here, this trip light. The batteries go front to back. So it's in the front is the UPS, and all the way back here is the battery pack. And I put them back to back or end to end, just so I didn't take up another 2U space. It's tough trying to work on it like that, but I pop off the side panels and I can get right in there. So pretty okay for home.
Well, this year I learned a ton about hardware, a ton about networking, and I hope you learned something too. And remember, if you found anything in this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.